Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomena, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome to another edition of Cal's Corner Radio Show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is the one and only Rob McConnell. Now, folks, as you know, especially those who listen regularly to the show, we cover everything from politics to the paranormal. We usually are unscripted, unrehearsed. We just, deal with things as they come along, or we talk about the current subjects. Today's show is no exception. We're going to start with politics. Then in segment 3, we have again a very special guest who's been on the show before. His name is Robert Kiviat. He's the famous Fox producer. He's going to be on just for one segment, segment 3, to give us a quick update on his actions against the CIA's Robert Pandolfi, Hal Puthoff, and so on, famous personalities in the paranormal field. He'll give us his update firsthand because we have this exclusive in this X-Zone investigation. And then the rest of the show, we're going to talk about, at least the first 2 segments, what is going on with the American government and Congress, and especially the young Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, her so-called New Green Deal. We're going to talk about that. And in the 4th segment, we'll go ahead and wrap things up and talk about how each of the different subjects, again, from politics to the paranormal, 2 very diverse subjects in this show, are relevant and why they're important and what to expect going forward. So let's get into it. As you know, in this last election, which was held last year, the left-wing liberal media, which of course hates Donald Trump for various reasons, both legitimate and illegitimate, let's be blunt, they, of course, were predicting a blue wave, which did not happen. Now, blue wave was previously defined as being this sweeping overturning of power ending essentially the existing U.S. government and putting the Democrats in control of the lower house of government, otherwise known as Congress, and possibly even taking the Senate. Well, reality bit the Democrats in the you-know-where, as it does everybody, especially when you make a point to ignore it, like the Democrats do. Who can forget the debacle of Hillary Clinton's election? Speaks for itself. And that's why I often call them Dumbocrats. When I call them Dumbocrats, it refers to Democrats who do dumb things. It has nothing to do with, or I'm not trying to insult the Walt Disney character Dumbo. I didn't even think about that. When a person asked me that question years ago, and it surprised me, but I had to explain, no, that's not what I mean. So in this election, we had a young 29-year-old woman named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She won her district in New York, which covers in part Queens, and she beat a longtime party hack or political incumbent, if you will, and it surprised everybody. But yet, if you look at her victory and you look at the breakdown of those dynamics, you find out that the majority of people didn't bother voting either in the initial primary runoff or in the final election. I am not trying to take away anything from her victory. I'm simply saying that she had it much easier than someone who was trying to run in, say, other parts of the country. I'll just leave it politically correct and at that way. So she won both the primary. It was a upset. She displaced the incumbent. He didn't even bother contesting it. And then, of course, she wins the subsequent follow-up final election. And now she is, of course, sitting in the U.S. government representing that area. And who is she? What does she stand for? Based on friends that I have who are Democrats, and even though they're critics of the party, and they know it's not perfect, they understand to a degree why I don't support that party anymore. I used to, but during Bill Clinton's second presidency, I stopped. I felt that the party had left me. I didn't leave the party. So what does she stand for? Why is her election victory important? Well, she's already introduced early on, right off, starting out the gate very fast, what she calls a new Green Deal. And for millennials out there who don't understand what the term New Deal means, please Google it. It refers back to a program that Franklin Delano Roosevelt launched during the Great Depression to try to revive the American economy. It both saved and didn't save America, meaning if you look at the economic reality, by the time of the attack of Pearl Harbor, America's economy was shrinking again and sinking again. Wasn't Roosevelt's fault, but there were a lot of good things that came out of that. Social Security, for example, was a very good program that came out of it, which has since been, let's be honest, raped and abused by subsequent administrations. It tends to be a favorite piggy bank that other government entities or politicians think they can raid or play games with, even though that money belongs to the American people. Shame on them. So what is it with her new Green Deal? Well, what I'm going to do is, for the rest of this segment and for the next one, I'm going to quote parts of this document, which has been formally submitted to Congress now, and I'm going to point out what I think are good things about it and things that are just, you just wonder what planet they come from. And I have to wonder about those types of things in here because although I understand this is kind of a initial first attempt, it actually isn't. It's a bit more than that. You see, this document isn't even really her original idea. Let's be blunt about it. I'm not criticizing her for it. It essentially is a rework of the Green Party's charter. And of course, her chief of staff, who is a American-born Indian, as in from India, it is really a lot of his input. And what has surprised me about Ocasio-Cortez is, although she cut her teeth politically while being a volunteer for the Bernie Sanders campaign, when I listen to some of her statements, it makes me wonder where her head was this whole time while she had this wonderful, incredible firsthand frontline opportunity to work for a presidential campaign that was serious and actually, one could argue, was very successful, and that's the campaign of former presidential candidate Bernie Sanders, who may once again run for the office of president. And this time, the Democratic Party won't cheat him the way they did because Hillary can't control them this time around. We'll get to that in another show. So back to Ocasio-Cortez. In the initial launch of this new Green Deal document, it was immediately criticized by almost everybody. And what's interesting is to see the Democratic Party bend over backwards now to have many of the so-called announced presidential candidates seeming to trip over each other to stress how left-wing they are now. They, of course, weren't like this before, but now they think this is the way they should be. This is how to pander to voters. Only they're not really thinking this through with a full deck, because I promise you, as a fellow American, that people's attitudes in San Francisco are very different from probably much of the rest of the country. That's just a scientific fact. In fact, one could argue that one of the greatest pieces of evidence that speak volumes about the legacy of two-term President Barack Obama is now we have Trump in the White House. That's reality, folks. If Obama and the Democrats had done such a fantastic job, and Hillary was the saint that we were just BS'd over that she was, and that she was the perfect candidate, she would be in office now and not Trump. Trump would be an afterthought, but instead he's on a lot of people's minds. So back to Ocasio-Cortez. She basically believes in global warming. Okay, fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's her right to do that. She absolutely believes in environmentalism and protecting the environment and what she calls green energy. But what's interesting about her take on this is she says no more nuclear energy. Well, that's a red flag for me, because nuclear energy is it's a fairly safe alternative to, certainly, and much more clean, if you will, than fossil fuels are. There are trade-offs here. Of course, you have radioactive waste. Duh. But there are ways to deal with that. And what you're not doing is spewing greenhouse gases into the environment. And nuclear power plants generate a lot of electricity. And of course, that's a good thing. So I disagree with her on that issue. I think it's naive. I think it's too utopiistic, if I can use that term. It's just not grounded in reality nor solid economics. Now, she also says that she wants to ban air travel. Now, that's just out there, right up there with believers in the Billy Meyer UFO cult. You just wonder what they're smoking or whatever. It's ridiculous. Ban air travel. Okay, her point is we want to ban air travel because it is bad for the atmosphere. Okay, well, here's a bit of a reality check here. One major launch of a satellite burns holes in the ozone. The space shuttle used to do that all the time. That's a lot more damage than, the daily flight to Prague from New York does. That's physics. All physics aside, what are you going to do for travel to air? Are you going to take the train to Tokyo? Isn't going to work. So, of course, one of the problems already with Ocasio-Cortez opening her mouth about this stuff, and this is a problem that I have with politicians in general, and it's too bad that she's choosing to act this way. Hopefully she'll change. Instead of complaining about the issue, which is valid if you have a valid complaint based on facts, why don't you finish the rest or the other half of the sentence and say, here's what we can do instead? But that's not what's going on now. So it's ban air flight. Well, excuse me or anybody if she gets some pushback that says, wait a minute, what are you proposing that people do then? Again, what are you going to do? Swim to Cuba? You're going to take the train to London, from Miami? It's just that, imagine what would happen if you tried to build a railroad track across the Atlantic Ocean. Imagine what the first hurricane would do to it. It's just insane. And then, of course, a massive public works program. She's talking about that on the scale of the Marshall Plan or the New Deal. Well, I don't think she's really studied the numbers involved in that, where there's shovel-ready jobs, which Obama had promised, swore they existed during the so-called stimulus, later admitted there were no shovel-ready jobs. I agree, U.S. infrastructure needs repair. It's been long neglected, but this needs to be something that isn't part of a new Green Deal. It should be part of an ordinary way of doing things. And that's the problem I have with this type of mentality. Doing what's right shouldn't be new. It should be what's right. We'll come back after this break.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all
Welcome
know
to the
about
second
simultv.com.
segment here on
simultv.com.
the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of this show is the one and only Rob McConnell. Now, we were talking about the new Green Deal that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has formally submitted to Congress. Again, she is the youngest member of Congress. She's female, of course, and she is already shaking things up because she represents the far left of the party. And when I say far left, I mean we're talking probably far, far left. In fact, that's a description of her by one of her colleagues, that is Senator Joseph Lieberman. And of course, he's a liberal. So he says she's really super liberal or far, far left. And what's happening is this. What millennials tend to do, and I've seen this as an older person, just my observation here, and I have these conversations with younger people all the time. Millennials tend to do this. I think this has started pretty much with the rise of the internet. What used to mean one thing not only changes, but it gets so spongy and malleable and ridiculous that, like this gender nuttiness where people think we have over 100 genders, whatever word I'm saying to you can be anything I want it to be. Let's just forget about reality. So take the word socialism, okay? Ocasio-Cortez says she's a socialist, okay? Well, that causes a problem for other self-proclaimed socialists who aren't as left-leaning as she is, let's say Senator Bernie Sanders or even Lieberman. They like to call themselves socialists, or at least Sanders has. Sanders himself, though, is really an independent, and he is registered as a Democrat when he's run for office. After he lost his bid for the presidency, he re-registered as an independent. He may run for president again, but Ocasio-Cortez is already in power. She's not running for president. Of course, she can't. She's not old enough. Even though her followers want her to run, they don't understand the Constitution, that she's not old enough to do it yet. So what happens is she's now saying, this is how she defines the word socialism, and this is a problem. She says, and this is a quote, "To me, what socialism means is to guarantee a basic level of dignity. It's asserting the value of saying that the America we want and the America that we are proud of is one in which all children can access a dignified education. It's one in which no person is too poor to have the medicines they need to live." Now, that is her definition of socialism, folks. This is a quote from her, okay? Now, I challenge any of you, even her most hardcore supporters, to look up the definition of socialism in any normal, credible dictionary and tell me where the definition comes even close. It doesn't. It has nothing to do with it, okay? And if I have to explain why it doesn't, then you're wasting your time listening to this show. Go watch something else. Now, let's talk about some of her other positions here. Healthcare. She says healthcare as a human right. It means that every child, no matter where you're born, should have access to a college or trade school education if they so choose it. Okay, I have no idea what education has to do with healthcare. But anyway, this is a quote from her. "And I think no person should be homeless if we can have public structures and public policy to allow for people to have homes and food and lead a dignified life in the United States." Well, what she's kind of done is she's kind of repackaged what she just said when she has been asked to explain what she means by socialism and why she calls herself a socialist. Okay, so she's just, again, reassembling the same catchphrases. And I have no doubt that she's really sincere. She wants homelessness to end. She would like to see, as she calls it, greedy corporations pay their fair share, whatever. In fact, her proponents have advocated, much to the fright of the leadership of the Democratic Party, like Nancy Pelosi, hello, they want to tax the rich as much as 90 to 91%. Well, the Democrats who depend on the rich to be in power, like Nancy Pelosi, who's rich herself, and of course, got even richer during her time in power, like almost all of them in office, and Ocasio-Cortez will inevitably as well. I predict that openly. Regardless of her noble intentions, you will find out that they just won't go for a 90 to 91% tax because their financial backers would run someone against them, and it just wouldn't last very long. So now you see in the Democratic Party a bit of a split. They don't want socialism, those who consider themselves to be socialists, to be defined by her, because it's too much for even them. So now there's a new way to try to fool the people. It's a term called social democrats. Folks, don't fall for this BS term. It is the same frigging thing. And I know this from firsthand because when I lived in Europe for 10 years, they have social democrats there, the SD party. Duh, hello, it's in Germany, it's in the Czech Republic. They have the Christian Democratic Party, a Christian Democratic Union. They have the Social Democrats. It's the same game, okay? But don't fall for it, because what's happening now is even worse. They just take a word and they just make up a definition for it and they use it, and then they condemn those who don't agree with their stolen, hijacked, made-up definition of it. And let me give you one example here, because it hit me just going through one of those things in life. I was in a store the other day, and here I see this eraser, and it's about maybe 6 inches long. It's a fairly good-sized eraser, and it reminded me of the big erasers the kids used to use, at least when I was in school. And it was rainbow striped, okay? There was like 6 colors there, 7 maybe. And they reminded me of the Apple logo. I'm an old school Apple guy, okay? So I remember the logo. I liked that logo. I always have. But I thought about it, and I realized that if people saw that today, and they were a millennial or younger, they would think that I'm supporting gay rights, that this is a gay rights supportive, some artifact made that supports or is making a statement about gay rights. The fact that it might just be an eraser with rainbow colors striped across doesn't matter to people. It's got to be connected to gay rights movement. And so, what used to be the colors of Apple's logo, for lack of a better term, are now the gay rights movement. Again, how one generation just appropriates something, it's just ridiculous. And let me give you one more example, because it has permeated our culture to the point where now you have wonderful TV networks like Discovery and History Channel running shows marketed as being true, even though they're very bad science fiction. You couldn't make this stuff up, even if it was real. It's so bad. The new series about Hynek, I knew Hynek personally in Project Blue Book, I think is just terrible. It's a disservice to the man and the subject, what he stood for, what he did, how he lived his life, the games the government played with him when he was their scientific advisor, etc. I had those conversations with Hynek, so did others. Anyway, so let me give you one more example. Debunker. We've talked about it before. Again, if you do have UFO nuts and the press saying these debunkers, they've got closed minds, they're skeptics, their minds are made up, can't confuse them with facts, just like Friedman says. Once again, folks, the word debunker means to take the bunk out of something, to remove the bunk from it, okay? To separate fact from fiction. You would like to think that that's a good thing if you're after the truth. Well, not if you're a ufologist, okay? They like to misuse that word because it's literally unique to their vocabulary. Decaffeinated means no caffeine, but somehow debunk doesn't mean to take the bunk out. Hello, are you even thinking in the real world? Well, that is what I call ufology, not ufology. Ufology is supposed to be the scientific study of UFO reports. We don't study the UFOs directly because they just won't cooperate for some reason. But ufology is when you make conclusions that are not derivable from the data, such as turning the definition of debunker into whatever suits your purpose. Okay, same with the word disclosure. Well, if it was disclosed and the disclosure movement is going on, where was I when the big news came, and where can I read it on the front page of the New York Times? Well, I can't because it hasn't happened. Therefore, it couldn't have been disclosed. And how many more decades do we have to wait? I'm going to go out on the limb here and predict that Jesus will come back before there's UFO disclosure. If I'm wrong, fine. I have no ego in this. I'm happy either way. But that's my non-psychic prediction. Okay, so back to Cortez. You have this wonderful idea in spirit that we need to help people close the gap between the rich and the poor, stop the implosion of the middle class. I do believe that healthcare is a universal human right as well. I love the healthcare system in Europe. It was wonderful. You paid a flat fee. Didn't matter what condition you had, and things were not expensive. Well, America doesn't do it that way because they're on the payroll of big pharma, our politicians, that is. So I have problems with the way the American healthcare system is a farce and how big pharma controls our politicians along with other industries. I do have a problem with that. She has a problem with it. I understand that. But if you're going to call for radical change, you're going to be attacked, even when you're right. And you better provide specifics. Now, if I were to read you the latest incarnation of this bill, they have removed some of this stuff which just isn't grounded in reality, such as the elimination of air flights. Okay, fine. But she still left the gaping holes of if you're going to build trains everywhere, it still doesn't work. That's not the answer either. Okay? And California is about to make that mistake because they've got to spend this federal money after now just canceling the bullet train to Southern California, or they'll lose it. So they're going to spend it even on something that isn't the best way to spend it. They're just going to spend a few billion because they don't want to give it back. That's not the way to save the planet. Hello? And these are the Democrats who have the supermajority in California. And no wonder most Californians, as of today, 53% of them are saying, we want to get out of here. And that's what's happening. California is losing more people than gaining it. And we'll switch subjects now after the commercial break here. We will bring on Robert Kiviat, and we'll talk about his update case against the CIA and stuff. We'll be back.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, They conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, folks, I mentioned at the top of the show that we would talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the New Green Deal. Then in segment 3, we're going to bring on Bob Kiviat for an update that only he can give you. And here is Bob Kiviat. We've had him on a show before. Bob, welcome.
Hi, Cal. How's it going?
It's going fine, sir. We're just talking about some of the new politics going on and stuff like that. So people out there, they want to hear an update about what's going on with your activities. So please go ahead and do it. You've got the whole segment.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the idea of politics in relation to me, because probably what's happening is that I'm moving more toward this more political kind of aspect with the UFO and phenomenology issue that the CIA seems to be calling all these connecting points to UFOs. But basically, at this point right now, the good news is that the lawsuit appears to be moving close to filing, but at the same time, it appears also that the settlement talks could be in the offing very quickly. I've had a chance now to have a long conversation with Ron Pandolfi at the CIA, who has confirmed that he is still at the CIA.
Okay.
And he more or less he's been as, I guess, revealing as one can be in the CIA, which is that he does not believe he may be culpable in my salary arrears and my contracted work, but he does see that I've worked extensively in trying to bring both whatever this device that Firmage is creating to the public properly with the right kind of media plan, and also that I had developed a TV series that would introduce this, at the same time get into the entire disclosure issue with UFOs, and have some of the CIA's, or specifically Ron's, kind of consulting in the background, and whether or not he's giving a limited hangout, a mixture of information, at least if he's stepping up to be behind the scenes, that sort of gives us a fighting chance to get a little further in the real disclosure of what's true about this whole subject. So it's good to hear that Hal Puthoff, a guy who more or less is the scientific mind behind To the Stars Academy, is now stepping forward and saying, okay, I'll talk to you, Bob, about the connecting points between To the Stars Academy and this operation I dealt with Firmage called InterNASA. What's interesting about it is Hal's recognizing that there definitely is a relationship between him and Ron Pandolfi. The only difference seems to be how Hal interprets that and how Ron interprets that. And Hal just recently emailed me today saying, you need to ask Ron his position, and he'll talk from his position, which is interesting because if the case goes to trial, as you know, Cal, Hal will be under oath, just like Ron will be under oath, and it'll be the first time ever these type of related people to the UFO phenomena and the government have ever been on trial in any way, or in a trial, should I say, in Hal's case, having to speak under oath about what they know about all of this, which has all kinds of penalties of perjury and whatnot if they're found to be lying. And the other aspect I want to bring your listeners to tonight is that the idea that people may have to go to court and speak under oath, I think is the first time ever that we're getting close to, I guess, truth. And I know, Cal, you're a big believer in truth, whatever that truth may be, as you've said before, even alluding to in my own programs. I mean, for the Fox network, you have said that, and I agree with that. That's the issue. Whatever the truth is, we want to know the truth.
Well, you're spot on about so many points, but I need to ask you this question only because I get asked it, and of course you're the best one to answer this question. You've probably been asked this too. You said soon. In your view, the way things look now, if you can disclose this info, what time frame do you think the paperwork will be filed if they don't get with reality? They don't settle or they don't get.
It's a very clear answer, Cal. Not to cut you off, but it's a very clear answer. Mm-hmm. We gave Daniel Marriott of the Marriott family an opportunity, because he is the main financier at this point, clearly. Okay. He would be the one now to ask, which he did. His lawyers asked for a 7-day extension twice. That means 14 days. When you carry out those 14 days, we're pretty much reaching that point just about the weekend. So my understanding is that Ron Pandolfi is coming back from out of the country Sunday. I just learned that yesterday. And so it's all coming together about Monday or Tuesday. If there is not any discussion towards settlement, we will file the papers. Wow.
So basically you're on a countdown.
Yeah, the countdown is probably sometime between now and Wednesday, I would guess.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that and making it clear, because when people hear this show who are following this, they're going to be clear on what the latest update is. What else would you like to add here in what you've seen so far? The term disclosure, for example, is bandied around a lot, but your kind of disclosure has teeth in it. So what about the government involvement? Because in the case of Pandolfi, either he's acting under orders or he's just doing it on his own. It's really binary.
Well, I can interject right now, Cal, that based on what Pandolfi has told me in a very, very open conversation that was listened to by an intermediary that he understands and I understand is a perfect intermediary. It was witnessed by someone. So he is saying, without a doubt, he is still in the CIA, without any doubt. Okay. And my understanding is you never really leave, but in this case, he's being quite clear that anyone who claims that he's not in the CIA anymore would be mistaken. Okay? Number two, the main issue is that if it turns out that this is an opportunity to get a real disclosure about what the government really knows about either the Tic Tac event in 2004, the other case that occurred in 2015, which is the Gimbal video and the Go Fast video, they represent that case, we will be able to get to the bottom of it. But what I really brought to the attention, I think, of Hal Puthoff, who is the brain trust, I think, behind To the Stars Academy, is that they copied in every way what Joe was trying to create, Joe Firmage, back in 2009, 2010, with many of the same players. The thing that Hal Puthoff is trying to say to me today is that they determined that Joe's machine would not work properly or is not founded in scientific tenability. But that does not jibe with what Ron and the CIA seem to be indicating. If Ron's not acting as an individual, if he is acting as a member of the CIA, then one would have to say that there's dissonance here, that Puthoff is claiming him and the present owner of Skinwalker Ranch, who was absolutely Joe's partner back in 2009, 2010, when they determined, according to Hal Puthoff and that individual, that Joe's machine would not operate properly or would not do the things that they hoped it would do, they walked away. But Joe did not walk away, and Pandolfi did not walk away. And apparently they resurrected it just about the time, the research, the testing, they resurrected it very suspiciously at the same time To the Stars Academy was announcing their big coming out party. So one has to wonder, what is the connection between the timing of those two events? A copycat of what Joe is doing called To the Stars Academy, and then Joe hiring me to more or less compete and take back the mantle, if you will, take back the original idea of what they were trying to create back in 2009, 2010. And that will come out at trial, I believe, if we have to go to court. I do believe it will come out.
Let me ask you this. Now that, especially as a private citizen, is there a possibility that you might be subpoenaing former Senator Harry Reid on this?
I think so. I would think that my lawyer, Eric Sapir, he probably would be looking at all the major players, and I can't imagine that having the senator, former, leader of the Senate in many ways, not the vice president, but as a majority leader, I would say that he basically would be a candidate for being subpoenaed and brought into the case. I do believe that. Yes.
Yeah, because you've got that. You've got the involvement of Bigelow right there. There's two red flags because of their relationship with each other. And then you've got certain members of the media, I won't even bother naming, who are kind of in bed with them. And then you've got the awarding of the money, the way Putov's in there too, these so-called mutual people, as you talk about. I mean, the whole thing just stinks, as the article that you were kind enough to grant me the interviews for was exposing. So, as a journalist, I hope it goes that way. Whoever is relevant gets under oath. I think that should be done. And I certainly wish you the best. And is there anything else in the last couple of minutes we have that you want to share?
No, I'm really glad you ended our conversation tonight with Harry Reid. He seems to be speaking very voluminously about the desire for government continuation into, spending money into the UFO mystery. And I think that's kind of cool. But on the other end, we want to find out what is his real agenda. He seems to be promoting something now that one would wonder, when he was in the government, why wouldn't he be promoting it then? So, you know what they say, when people leave government, they usually take private sector jobs.
Yeah.
What's Harry Reid's job right now? What is this job he's doing promoting Skinwalker Ranch vis-a-vis George Knapp? What is he doing promoting the idea that the ATIP study actually had real UFOs involved, when we know most of the money seemed to go to Bigelow? And what kind of crazy ideas they're building warehouses for UFO, like hardware, UFO metal, when there probably is enough for a shoebox. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. If at all, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's a can of worms. It's ugly. It stinks. It needs to be blown open for the, I think, interests of transparency and accountability in our democracy and the American people. They're paying for this stuff ultimately, including, when they buy the hooey videos that hype this stuff is real when it's just BS.
Yeah. Yep. One parting line for the night. Remember what brought Hal Puthoff into dialogue with me. He was literally not honoring callbacks to me for 4 or 5 months. Finally, when I let Hal Puthoff know what Ron was saying, that he's involved in techno scams.
Okay, Bob, we're going to get cut off by a commercial. Thank you. We'll be back.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
SIMULTV.com.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
SIMULTV.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. SIMULTV.com.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner radio show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Wow, that was an amazing third segment there with Bob Kiviat. We couldn't do a longer one. Bob had some other commitments tonight, but we will certainly have him back, and because we're given the inside track on this and many exclusives, a lot of the information you just heard, I've heard it for the first time as well. We'll keep you posted. As you know, we have to. It's our responsibility here, regardless of what happens going forward. Wow. Okay, let's get back now to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Again, what the new left has done, or the young millennials, is they're throwing around terms and verbiage as if they mean whatever you want them to mean. And that, of course, just completely destroys the very concept of having a language, a vocabulary, and words. Okay? So if you look at her definition of socialism, once again, she's talking about it means to guarantee a basic level of dignity. It's asserting the value of saying that, you know, the America we want, the America that we are proud of, is one where all children can access a dignified education. It's one in which no person is too poor to have the medicines they need to live. Now, that's her definition of socialism. Now, one instead might say, well, how about that being the definition of competent government? Because there are governments who do provide different types of health care much better than the U.S. does, and they're not socialist countries. In fact, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they are so naive about history and what these words really mean, even though they're now representing the people of the United States in office, elected. They will say, well, Sweden is a socialist country. Look how successful they are. They'll point to Denmark. They'll point to places like Amsterdam. They'll point to Norway. They'll point to Finland. Well, none of those countries are socialist. In fact, you can easily Google statements by the current leadership of these countries, even Denmark, that says it's kind of insulting to call us socialist, because we're not. We are a market-driven economy and democracy. Now, socialism, by definition, and this is something that these people just refuse to admit, just like people who can't use the word bunker properly, that socialism means that the government controls all essential choke points in the country and its economy. They control the phone lines. They control the power lines. They control the TV signals. They control the TV networks. They control the press. They control mass transportation. They control the economy, the economic output of factories. They're the largest employer in a real socialist country. And if you look at history 101, hello, especially last century, we have nothing but failure after failure after failure of countries that tried to go socialist. Ever hear of the USSR, former Soviet Union? China itself today is not really a socialist as in pure communist country. It's basically a totalitarian capitalistic country. They like to make money, okay? But they're ruthless about it. They're ruthless capitalists. And then you have Ocasio-Cortez saying, and this is a quote, "Capitalism has not always existed in the world and will not always exist in the world." Okay, folks, let's go and explain that real quickly, why that's just beyond stupid. I don't care who says this remark. In this case, it happens to be her. Capitalism has not always existed in the world and will not always exist in the world. Okay, let's talk about science and archaeology. Now, whether you believe the Earth is 5,000 or 6,000 years old or 5 or 6 billion years old, it doesn't matter. I think all people would agree that human beings have always traded since essentially day one. If they weren't trading, they would just take it, okay? things weren't very nice back then, especially with no police around, etc. If you couldn't get what you wanted, sometimes you just killed for it. That's the way it was back then. I'm not saying it's right. I'm talking about also going way back in human history and evolution. So we know that people have always traded. What they trade, that's between them. But they've always traded. Well, guess what? Do you know what trading is? It's a form of capitalism, isn't it? There's value in this stuff, okay? Somebody's trading 2 whatevers for 1 whatever, or who knows what the numbers are. The point is, it's capitalism. And it's one of the oldest things people have done. In fact, they were trading before they could even speak. And in fact, capitalism and trading things helped language form. You had to call it something, whether you're grunting and groaning about it or writing whatever. Point is, it helped develop our brains. That and, of course, eating complete proteins and amino acids, which came from meat, not vegetables. That's another thread. Anyway, the point is, capitalism has been there since day one. But it wasn't until Marx and Lenin and those bozos where we got socialism, communism, huh? Maybe there were other precursors to it. Yeah, there were in various weird forms. On the other hand, that was way late in human evolution, and in that case, it was human de-evolution. It wasn't an improvement. If it was, the USSR would be around today, and they would have won the Cold War instead of having imploded and lost it because they have that much talent. So when she says, again, an elected congresswoman, person, doesn't matter who it is, that capitalism has not always existed in the world and will not always exist in the world, maybe at some point in the future it won't be necessary, but unless everything's free, there is some sort of capitalism going on. Even if it's free, things have value. Can somebody trade a shoestring for a house? Even in her utopia, can't do that. Okay? So some of this stuff is just outright loopy. And it makes me wonder, what were you voting for? Now, one can say, well, she's young, she's naive, or whatever. Hey, she's 29, pushing 30. Okay? I don't know where young and old begin and all that. It's relative to the observer. But I'd argue she's on the far side of the curve of what one might call a spring chicken. She's on her way down, like everybody else who is heading towards her 30s and older. Okay? So then there's the issue of, what did she learn during the time she spent with the Bernie Sanders campaign? When I hear her say things where she can't even articulate some of the basics of the Holocaust from World War II, I realize she wasn't alive then, neither was I, but at least I can do that. It really concerns me, because when you pin her down to these details, you've got these problems, okay? Now, about her issue, she wants to abolish ICE. Well, she wants to abolish the agency that handles customs enforcement. Well, why have police at all at that point? And she says, they're bad guys, they abuse their authority and whatever. Well, I got news for you. If somebody's going to abuse whatever system, it pretty much has been going on before there was an entity called ICE. ICE itself didn't even exist until, it was put really into hardcore force, especially after the attacks of 2001, okay, when the Department of Homeland Security basically took over the issue of immigration, and everything was put under, including many intelligence agencies, to the DHS. They handle everything, and that was a good way to reorganize the government, because it brought a pyramidal structure that when it worked right, it really worked right. There haven't been major terrorist attacks anywhere near the scale that bin Laden managed to pull off in 2001 since that time. Well, there's a reason for it. It's because of U.S. foreign policy, both when they get it right and when they get it wrong. Okay? So what we have with, or my issues with her, is she's got some great ideas. They're not new or original ideas. I think they're more reflective of her generation. Yes, young people care about the environment while they eat record amounts of fast food. Go figure. And of course, continue to use plastic and all that other stuff. And while California may ban soda straws, okay, that may help clean up the local environment, but it's really Asia that generates a lot more pollution than the United States does on so many fronts. And it has to do with the issue of babies, folks. Just do the math. How many people are there in India? 1.2 billion. How many in China? About 1.3 billion. How many in the United States? 320 million. Hello. Now, what about pollution? Well, Cortez repeats the left-wing la-la liberal myth that the United States is the leading industrial polluter. Well, I got news for you. With the 150 new coal plants that China is now building because they're a signatory to the Paris Accord, that's how much they care about the environment, they will now equal the industrial output, coal-wise, of the United States. So the numbers are changing. It is Asia that is tipping the balance, with cities like Beijing and Delhi. I've been there many times. Trust me, it absolutely deserves the award of being the dirtiest, filthiest city. It's just terrible over there. These are people, these are countries and governments that are signatories to the Paris Accord. And I've said it's useless because it has no teeth. And yet both India and China continue to expand their use of coal because they care about global warming, they care about the environment, and they say some of the same stuff that Ocasio-Cortez does, and they just don't talk about or put anything into action that will get them there because they're hypocrites. And for someone to offer a plan that has a good intent but doesn't pave the way on how to get there, and instead just says, here's what we have to do, but let's forget about specifics, well, I think we should focus on those specifics and get those done rather than just say, hey, we need to do whatever and talk about a high-level idea, but without providing the means to get there, there's no point. You're wasting your time. It's just a dream. It's just a fantasy. It's not going to become policy because the proverbial devil, as usual, is always in the details. And this is going to get a lot more interesting as it goes forward here with this split government we have known as the United States of America. Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of this show tonight. We'll be back again next week. Thanks again. See you next week. Take care.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.